Welcome to another exciting episode of Next Man Up. It's our Week 6 NFL recap show on Down the Rabbit Hole Media, coming your way in just a moment. If you've been following the NFL, it's basically like following a soap opera with so many plot twists you have no idea where things are going. Chris Lizio, Johnny P, Nikki G, and myself will break down all the Week 6 madness of our favorite teams, as well as discuss league-wide rules and trends that we have been noticing. I'm Tony Joseph, and the Next Man Up Week 6 recap show on Down the Rabbit Hole Media starts now.
It's a motorcycle drive-by, baby giant condos.
All right, it's go time. Obviously, 3 out of 4 of our favorite teams lost. It's time for FaceTime, but I think the New York Giants lost in the most embarrassing way possible. So I'll start. It is extremely disheartening to lose in prime time again. Obviously, it's extremely disheartening to be 1-5. However, if you are Brian Daboll right now and you simply take points when you can get them, because I get it. Everybody's saying, hey, 3 games without a touchdown, get in the end zone. This is haunting our game plan every single week. We are getting so worked up on the fact that we haven't scored a touchdown that we are losing our heads in situations. Obviously, story of the game is the end of the half. Tyrod Taylor choosing to check into a run. Now, my personal question on that subject, was the play a option 1, option 2 type play? Because all Brian Daboll said, there was communication in regards to it having to be a pass play. If it really does have to be and it did, if it did have to be a pass play 100 out of 100 times, why is there even an option to check into a run? Why is that a play that is called into the offense? So I will put more blame on Daboll and Kafka, which this combination has really struggled this year. We saw a lot of interesting looks last year, offensive game plans that were kind of an innovative twist on Giants football. And what I mean by that is Giants football is running the football, controlling the clock, winning with your defense, the formula they have had for their entire franchise's history. And then having an effective 2-minute with the game on the line, which we saw a glimpse of that last year in the playoffs. However, we are so broken offensively. I kind of wish Tom Coughlin would come back and coach this team right now, because that man would never leave points on the field when given the opportunity to score points. Had the Giants just kicked field goals in field goal range throughout that game, guess what? They beat the Buffalo Bills 15-14, and it's a Super Bowl 25 score, and that was what was supposed to happen. We can sit here till we're blue in the face about flags. Yes, Darren Waller was borderline assaulted in the end zone. It should never be that a pass catcher is only able to go up with one hand for a ball that is in the air, and that is what the obstruction did. The stupid part of the rule was because every broadcast has an official on the broadcast that tells you the rule. He said it can't be defensive holding because the ball was in the air so quickly, so that means it had to have been pass interference, which, whatever. Throw something on the ground. I get you don't want to call back-to-back fouls in front of a rowdy Bills crowd, but they made the wrong decision. But if I'm categorizing blame for this loss in this season right now, it's Daboll, Kafka, number 1. Obviously, I guess you can kind of say a combination of Tyrod and Jones, number 2, offensive line, number 3. I know I'm in the rarity on that. A lot of people will say offensive line ahead of that, but you saw just from Justin Pugh, who noted on the broadcast that he's off the couch. We saw a very improved offensive line unit. If you get Schmitz back at center, which I think should be this week, if you get Thomas back at left tackle, which I questioned how seriously hurt he is. He's been out since week 1. That's rare for somebody to be out that long and not go on IR, especially when it's over 4 weeks. So when you get Thomas back, you get Schmitz back, you have Pugh now. Neal, I know he's been annoying. He actually looked okay on Sunday night. So I'm looking at the schedule. I think Giants fans, the expectation should be to continue to improve. Defense is improving. That's been a positive aspect. Yes, it'd be nice to score a touchdown, but Washington, Daniel Jones, obviously we kind of anticipate that he will be back in the starting role. But again, This team, this group, very much in the Belichick category of things, not always being clear about their injuries. I would not be surprised if this neck injury is much more significant to Daniel Jones than they've let on. And if that's the case, last thoughts on the Giants. I don't know if there's that much of a difference between Jones and Taylor starting. I think it's the same result. I think it's the same exact team. Obviously, I think Jones is a better athlete, but in the end, everybody said, oh, Taylor had some shots downfield to Slayton. Okay, it was nice to see. They've probably practiced together because Slayton has been low on the depth chart in the past. He had to work his way back. Tyrod was the backup at that time. That's sort of my theory why they had a connection. But that being said, we still had no touchdowns. We still struggled. We still made mental mistakes on offense. So Giants fans, hang in there. The schedule, they say the schedule is harder, but I'm looking at it. I think we can scrape a few wins there. Maybe we can get the 5 or 6 wins on the season, and I think that should be the motivation. But my man Johnny P did a great podcast on bare necessities. Obviously, he was riding pretty high last week with that win against Washington, but now it seems almost like we're down to earth. Johnny, what is the pulse in Chicago? How are things with the Bears? How are you?
Well, that Washington win was short-lived on Thursday Night Football. We were joking about it a little bit last week. I don't know if it's just going to take a Bears legend passing away like Dick Butkus to light a fire under this team or not. But things have come back down to earth, and now Justin Fields is likely going to miss significant time with a dislocated right thumb. MRI results really aren't quite in yet. We don't know if there's torn ligaments or tendon damage that might require surgery. So it's officially the Tyson Bagent show in Chicago. The Bears fell to the Vikings 19-13 this past Sunday, and the Bears are back to being a mess. I mean, this is a franchise that doesn't understand how to sustain winning success. This team has not won a home game at Soldier Field since September of 2022. That was last season against the Texans. So again, where do we rank this blame? Everyone's pointing fingers right now. All hell is broken loose once again. And honestly, going back to that Thursday night game, I really think the Bears just caught Washington off guard, and Washington was just asleep for that first half. And, they obviously came back within the game to make it a game in that second half. But again, this Bears coaching staff it just continues to fumble the game plan week in and week out. You have the reigning NFC offensive player in DJ Moore. He got targeted once in the first half. That's coaching malpractice, guys. That is just unacceptable. How do you not get the ball to your number one playmaker? It's troubling. So again, where do we rank the blame? Again, I in my opinion, the top is at the ownership. Ownership is at the top as to who we blame. The McCaskey family, they claim that they're this great football family, yet they continue to hire the wrong people and let go the wrong people. Since Lovie Smith was fired as Bears head coach in 2012, the Bears have had one winning season. They finished 8-8 twice, but they've had one winning season since. I think the coaching staff, again, this coaching staff, Eberflus and Luke Getsy, our offensive coordinator, these guys needed to go yesterday. Extremely conservative game plans. They continue to not put the players in the positions to succeed. And then our GM, I think Brian Poles has done some good things, like flipping that number one pick and also, having the number one pick for this upcoming year. Hopefully, if Carolina continues to be Carolina, the Bears right now are in position for that number one and number two pick if things ended right now. So the Bears do have assets. They have a bunch of salary cap. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom, but this fan base, we're struggling to understand that, although April's so far away, what gives us the confidence that this current regime or the next regime is finally going to get it right? I mean, that's the problem. And really quick before we get to the other teams, I mean, Justin Fields, the number one storyline this year was to track and see his development. And how are we going to be able to track and see his development if he's not playing, if he's not on the field? I know you guys have come at me saying that, oh, you're so Jekyll and Hyde with Fields. Well, Justin hasn't been able to put consistent performances together outside of that Denver and Washington game in week 3 and week 4. On Sunday before he got hurt, he was holding on to the ball way too long. After 3 seconds, bro, you got to get rid of it. You got to check it down. Too many turnovers, way too many turnovers. And I am a Justin Fields believer. We all want to see him succeed, but the guy has 5 career wins This is his third season. And Tyson Bagent, the 23-year-old undrafted rookie out of Martinsburg, West Virginia, from Shepherd's University, it's alarming. I talked about it on my podcast, on the Bare Necessities podcast. In my opinion, I'm on tape, and I'm no football evaluator, guys. He has better footwork. He has better mechanics. And he's able to get into a rhythm of getting the ball out quicker than Justin Fields. And if you're a Bears fan, that is alarming. That is extremely concerning. Realistically, I don't think that the Bears are going to win anything more than 4 games this season. I do think this is a winnable game this upcoming Sunday against the Raiders team that realistically you're going to see Brian Hoyer start for the Raiders. I do think this is a winnable game. If the Bears can't win this game, guys, I have no idea when the next win's going to come. 5 of their next opponents are going to be on the road in New Orleans. I'm actually going to be there in a couple of weeks to watch the Saints take on the Bears. Super excited for that. It's going to be an awesome week. I've never been to New Orleans. I don't know about you guys. Really looking forward to that. But other than that, the future really isn't that bright until we get to April. But we keep talking about April is so far away. So Bears fans, we're just salivating for anything to be positive about right now. There's not much.
God bless Johnny, and just hang in there. I mean, it's kind of like Fat Bastard from Austin Powers. Is he fat because he's unhappy, or does he? Oh, I screwed that up. I'm unhappy because I eat, or do I eat because I'm unhappy? That is the Justin Fields problem with the Bears right now. Obviously, it's a little bit of a metaphor, and I've been in New Orleans, but it was a while ago, and my memory is a little fuzzy of everything. It was a fun time. Be smart. Nikki G. I feel like we're asking you the same questions every week. Obviously, this was a winnable game for the Patriots. And to see Myers performing the way he did, the former Patriots wide receiver, what's the pulse with New England right now? Are they looking at like possibly the number 1 pick next year, Belichick gone, cleaning the whole damn thing top to bottom? Or will they salvage some wins? What do you think?
I mean, as it is right now, we could be contending for that top draft pick spot. So Carolina, please get a couple of wins. And John, sorry, but look out, we may be coming for it. But I mean, seeing Myers play the way that he played this past week, it's one of those punches in the gut where it's a reminder, like, man, we let that guy go. And it's something where, we could have given the money that was given to both Juju Smith-Schuster and Devontae Parker. We could have given that money to him and maybe even put a little more into Kendrick Bourne's pocket or to Matt Judon or somebody else. But that's just it was a heartbreaking loss there. I will say, though, this loss was not completely on Mac Jones. Yes, he did make some very simple mistakes, including rolling out and throwing an interception directly to the Raiders secondary. But it was a team loss, and it was ugly, but not as ugly as it's been in the past few weeks. Jelani Tavai stepped up huge on the defense. I'll say him and Jabril Peppers were probably the 2 biggest highlights for the team there, including that hit where I thought for a second Devontae Adams' ribs might have been broken, the way that Peppers speared him on that one. And Tavai caught that pass, caught the deflection for the interception there. But finally scored a few touchdowns too. Zeke finally got his first offensive touchdown with the Patriots. But the next 2 weeks, they've got Miami and Buffalo at home in Foxborough. Very tough games coming up. And I know in the beginning of this, before the season started, I said I wasn't buying Miami. I think I got to kind of change my tune on that now. Unfortunately, as much as I don't want to, but it's got to be something where they need so much help. That offensive line still showed its ugliness, and it's got to be something. I know Patriots legend Teddy Bruschi came out this week and said that Belichick should consider retiring at the end of the year. And I kind of don't mind that. I don't mind him saying that. I think he's got a good point on that. The word is that Gerard Mayo may be the next guy that Bob Kraft turns into the head coach. He's spoken very highly of him, and Belichick himself has also spoken very highly of how Mayo has been as a coach for the team. I'd like to see him do that. He's certainly put in the work for it, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes. I know after Miami and Buffalo, we've got Indy and the Commanders, not in that order necessarily, but those 2 may be your best chances at that point to scrounge together some sort of win. And also the way that we played Miami in week 2, I mean, almost pulled it off at the end, except Cole Strange just apparently didn't get far enough for that first down, which he definitely had. But it remains to be seen.
I hear you, Nikki, man. I mean, my opinion, just an outsider, Belichick can stay if he's not the GM anymore. That would be my take if I'm a Patriots fan, because obviously this guy could still coach defense. Their offense is struggling, but the belief he's had in certain players like Mac Jones or signing Juju for the same money over Jacoby Myers, I mean, that looks bad. I know Myers had that colossal game that he pretty much lost all by himself last year, but maybe if he doesn't make that throw, maybe they sign him if he doesn't make that throw, right? Like I kind of thought about that, but I don't know. But good news for Jets fans. The Super Bowl's back on. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Christopher has been holding his tongue. The floor is yours, my friend.
All right. So let me get this out of the way. Before the game started, you find out Sauce Gardner's out. DJ Reed is out. Eccles is out. The top three corners on the team are all out. You think A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are going to have a field day, and the Jets are going to be the goddamn Jets. But they pull up two players from the practice squad, and this defense came to play on Sunday. They made Hurts feel uncomfortable. We had 0 tush-push attempts because there were really no instances where they were in that 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 situation. They made sure to keep them out of those situations. The only time that Hurts really had a chance to run the ball in that sort of situation was the fumble that became a touchdown on the first drive, which I still don't understand the whole overturning of that. But this defense is as good, if not better, than advertised. The adjustments they have made, the Eagles, one of the most high-powered offenses in the league, scored 0 points in the second half. Everything was in the first half. The adjustments that this team has been making week in and week out at halftime have been something out of the prime Patriots adjustments. I don't know if it's Saleh, if it's Ulbrich on the defense, or if it's Hackett making adjustments on the offense. Whatever the case is, the adjustments this team has been making have been the adjustments of teams that come and play to win. The defense, as I've been saying, will keep them in every single game. And Zach Wilson has not done anything these last few weeks to say, man, get that kid out of there. He's playing at a higher level than he had been at previously. He's not playing at the all-star caliber level of, oh, well, when Rodgers comes back, you just let him sit on the bench because you don't want to ruin the kid's psyche. But I think that he's had a much more mature attitude this year after the games, even after losses. He's shouldered more of the blame. He has better reads on the field, better, answers off the field. He's actually going through his progressions. You see that he shook off this. They broke it down. They shook off this look, and this is the guy that he found. And it's like he's playing like an actual pro. Some of the throws that he made look like Aaron Rodgers out there. There was a back foot flick down the sideline to Garrett Wilson on one of the best catches I've seen, and it looked very Rodgers-esque. The 2-point conversion, extending that play, getting that 2 points to really give that boom, we're here and we're going to win this game on that last touchdown. He extended it. He moved where he had to go. He got the guy that he had to get. And he's making these reads that show, okay, this kid can play. He can do it. Is the Super Bowl still on? I mean, you've seen them play, and Robert Saleh even said they played against elite quarterbacks. 3 quarterbacks in particular, probably the 3 that will always get the MVP votes for these next few years. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. All 3 of them probably had their worst games against the Jets. The defense is Super Bowl champion caliber. John, I'm not putting them in that 85 Bears category yet. Let's see how far they do get them. But I will say that this is very reminiscent of that 2009, 2010 Jets teams, which I've been saying week in and week out. It's a team that's designed to run the ball. Breece Hall didn't even get started most of the game. It took a little while for him to kick in. Did they Olay him into the end zone to let them score on that last drive and let Breece Hall get that score to then get the ball more time left, thinking, oh, our offense is good enough to go down the field? I think that is the case, but Robert Saleh put it nicely. He's like, you know what? If we're in that situation, we're not looking to chew the clock, because then if you settle for the field goal there, they kill some timeouts, then guess what? You give them the ball back, they got to go maybe 35 yards when they get the ball back to get a field goal and win. Get the points. Don't leave the points out there on the field, as you said with the Giants. You don't want to leave those points out on the field if you have the opportunity to get them. They were behind, they went ahead, and they said you have to score a touchdown and then make the conversion afterwards in order to take the game in regulation. They've gone toe-to-toe with the top teams in the league, and you could say that they could possibly have been 4-2 if not for the referees in the Kansas City game, or even 5-1 if they got one more yard on that last drive against the Patriots. So, you look at it, they're 500 going into the bye, and they're going to get healthy. You're going to get Sauce back. You're going to get Reed back. You're going to get a lot of guys back in after that bye, and you have a matchup with your housemates with the Giants the week after that. This is the best possible scenario for this team going into the bye. A lot of times towards the end of the season when you say a team is in charge of his own destiny. The Jets at this point are 100% in charge of their own destiny. They are 500 after week 6, and the schedule, I'd say, does soften up. You still have the Commanders on the schedule. You have the Falcons on the schedule. You have the Texans on the schedule, the Giants. You still have to play.
Whoa.
Hey, we'll get into it. But, you have 2 matchups with the Dolphins still. Yeah. That'll really be the test. And then you have another game against Buffalo and New England at their places. So does it come down to week 18 where it's Patriots are playing to lose for the first overall pick and Jets are playing to make it into the playoffs in week 18? I don't know. Nick, what would you rather have in that situation? Would you rather keep us out of the playoffs or have the first overall pick?
I mean, in a perfect world, if I could have both, yes. But at this point, I'd probably see if we could get the first overall pick and just whoever the best available player is at that point in time, get them.
I think as long as Bill Belichick has a pulse and the Jets need that game at the end of the season, he's going to do whatever he can to prevent them from winning it and keep that streak alive. Now, you mentioned some Ole defense. Clyde always referred to it as the Matador defense, so I think you're mistaken. I believe there was the Matador defense
here you go.
No, I like the Matador, Anyway, well, go ahead. Final thoughts on the Jets.
And then final thoughts. They took down the last of the unbeatens. The Dolphins are popping the champagne. And I say last of the unbeatens.
PJ Walker and the Browns, are they going
That's
to
where
the
I was
Super
going
Bowl?
with it. We live in a world where the 2 final unbeaten teams lost to the Jets and the Browns, both playing with their backup quarterbacks.
And you might live in a world where the New York Giants beat the New York Jets. I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying if it looks like the teams that we saw, you could very well see a 14-10 example of quarterback, who is going to make the first turnover might be how that game goes. Obviously, Jets defense has been playing phenomenally, and the Giants defense is not in the same stratosphere, but it looks like the Giants defense is kind of turning the corner a little bit, and nothing would surprise me. This league, come on, man. I tricked you guys. All right. Let's go into the next part of the show with a fun little game. Okay. I wrote some stuff down for you guys to think about before the game, but without even looking at stats. I don't know if any of you guys are as prepared enough to actually have stats out and about right in front of you right now, but without even looking, who would you say is the best quarterback in the NFL right now? Shout it out. Anybody? Seriously. Tua? All right.
Unfortunately, Tua.
I think
numbers wise,
Daniel Jones would be a top 10 passer in the Miami offense. So objectively, who do you think is the best quarterback in the NFL right now? I know Miami is, seriously, Tua could get hurt and Miami's offense could still keep rolling, I believe. I'm not saying they would, but Mike White could be impactful in this.
It's Mike White. He's the best player to have for one game.
Tyrod Taylor could have a good run in that. They have running backs and receivers that are track stars. They are at the greatest show on turf level. So, no disrespect to Tua, but you mentioned, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Who are they? Who the hell are they? They're not doing nearly. Hurts is probably doing the best out of those 3, but Mahomes and Allen obviously are not in the same MVP category that they were last year. They're not. They're winning still, but Mahomes, come on. You could actually argue. There was an argument made recently on this show that, hey, maybe the Vikings will trade Kirk Cousins. How do the Vikings trade what might be the second or third best quarterback in the NFL?
He's also said he's not waiving his no trade clause, so he's not going anywhere.
So, yeah, I don't think. But that was a legit. Jets fans in this state on airwaves that I listened to were saying, "Oh, we should trade for Kirk Cousins," and I kept thinking, why on earth would the Vikings give you one of the best quarterbacks they've had since Brett Favre for one flash in the pan?
The only logic behind it is that he's on the last year of his contract. do they plan on extending him or not? And if you can get value for someone when your team's possibly going nowhere because they have one win,
they're in all these games. They're in all the games, and he's playing exceptionally.
At what point do you say this season is lost? They're already at 4 losses. They're in a 2-game hole. They're in a division where the Lions are one of the top teams in the NFL. I said, we're living in a bizarre world. The Lions are one of the top teams in the NFL.
Jared Goff is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
I put Goff up there as one of the best ones right now too.
MVP candidate, leading MVP candidate today is Jared Goff.
So if you're the Vikings, you're looking at best a 7 seed, but you look at the other teams in the NFC. How does everyone else rank? Seattle's probably going to get one of those wild card spots. You got to assume the Cowboys are going to get one of the wild card spots. You have one more spot left. Are the Vikings going to get to that point where they get that last spot?
They might not, but it's not because of Kirk Cousins.
It's definitely not because of Kirk Cousins, but it's one of those things you see it in baseball all the time. These players get traded off of these teams that they've spent their whole careers with because the team says, you know what, this season's lost. We need to recoup and reevaluate and build for our future. If you're going to trade away a quarterback who's probably towards the end of his career and maybe going to get 2 more years out of him to get some sort of premier pick because your team's not going anywhere, you're going to pull that trigger if you have that opportunity. I mean, why? So you see these players get dealt all the time to different places. I mean, look at Christian McCaffrey, best running back in the league, best player of the year. This
running backs are completely different category.
Regardless,
because it's the money. The money is more movable.
The money is different, but you're looking at different players and what they mean to their franchises and everything like that.
I understand McCaffrey is the best running back in the NFL, but I'm just saying he's more movable because of the money. And yes, the Panthers were 100% restarting.
Exactly.
The Vikings should not. They should not. But a lot of talent on offense.
They have a lot of talent, but that talent, what does that talent have to show? They have 2 wins.
They're going to make the playoffs. I'm just going to, you know what? I'll just say it. Put it on the show. The Minnesota Vikings will figure it out. They're doing too well on offense.
I feel like a weird team like the Rams might get closer than a team like the Vikings.
Rams can't. Stafford's in the category of top 5 quarterbacks that we were just talking about.
They've got good coaching. They get the best out of their players. I mean, this is not the same Rams roster that won the Super Bowl a couple seasons ago, but Sean McVay is able to get the best out of some of the guys that, we never even heard about before coming into the season. Guys like Puka Nacua, so
I could 2 touchdowns.
Puka Nacua. I mean, if we're talking like early award predictions, he's my offensive rookie of the year at this point. Oh, yeah, I mean, absolutely. How could he not be?
Absolutely.
Now, Nikki G, a lot of this is something that gets tossed out around a lot. The next Tom Brady. Everybody loves to throw that around. I am actually of the belief that Brock Purdy is the next Tom Brady, simply because it's a similar situation where they got him basically for free at the end of the draft. Nobody was even thinking about him. There was no real college tape for you to think that this guy could be a top 5 passer, but he's come into a system that is so perfect for him, surrounded by talent and great coaching. You kind of go, holy smokes, are they going to win for another 10 years? And that's why I think Purdy's the next Brady. Would you agree?
Maybe. I mean, we've seen some.
I'm not saying he's going to win 7 rings, but
I mean, maybe not to that caliber, but maybe as far as how his career tracks out, it could be a possibility. I mean, I still say right now at this time for modern day era, it's Patrick Mahomes is the current modern day Tom Brady, but maybe for long term, for how Purdy could turn out with his career, it's a possibility. It's that similar kind of story, like you said. He was the Mr. Irrelevant pick, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's more or less the point
that's the analogy
is the analogy of like he was drafted so late. I mean, even Kirk Cousins, 4th round pick.
But that's why it's so good. Well, the Washington, drafted 2 quarterbacks that year, so that was part of why it screwed up. But my theory is, if you can steal a quarterback that you're not having to pay 1st-round talent for, it is so much better to build your team that way. Obviously, it's like winning the lottery. It's like spending a $2 bet on one of those parlays where all of a sudden everything hit and you made $12,000.
But at the same time, you look at Brock Purdy this last Sunday. He loses 2 of his top playmakers. Christian McCaffrey goes out of the game and Deebo Samuel goes out of the game. And guess what? He crumbled. Granted, the Browns have the best statistical defense in the league.
I mean, he didn't really crumble. They missed the game-winning field goal, Chris. They missed it.
Well,
the kid missed 2 field goals, too.
I mean, he didn't look good in the second half. He didn't look good once those guys went out. He didn't have his security blankets.
No. The Browns defense is legit. Like
Yes.
they got into his head and they weren't going to go undefeated.
No, not
and
discrediting that.
And to that point, and yeah, I think we all like Purdy, but to that point, the Browns and the Eagles, the Browns and the Jets, obviously upset the two remaining unbeaten teams. The 49ers probably still should be undefeated, but the Browns escaped. Even with PJ Walker, a quarterback, that's incredible. So when you see PJ Walker winning a game, you see Zach Wilson starting to string wins together, and you see what the Atlanta Falcons are doing, and you look at these teams. I think about our teams, Johnny, and I think about the offseason where we're drinking all this Kool-Aid thinking our offense, we're going to be like the Miami Dolphins. We're going to have that DJ Moore is going to be a track star athlete. Darren Waller is going to score 5 touchdowns a game. You start drinking that Kool-Aid and thinking that offense is going to be the greatest show on turf. How quickly should you realize that your offense is broken? Giants should have realized it's probably about 5 minutes into the first game. But how quickly do you realize your offense is broken and you build like that? You say, hey, priority 1, defense. Priority 2, running the football. Priority 3, a quarterback that doesn't make mistakes, not necessarily game-winning plays. Why can't the Bears be doing that with Justin Fields right now? I would like the Giants to do that.
I keep coming back to it. I think it's all about coaching and developing a solid offensive line. We talked about the Giants' offensive line issues. The Bears have not figured out consistently how to put together a really good offensive line. We just touched on the San Francisco 49ers. What do they have? A great running game that starts with that offensive line. It starts up front. If you're not able to protect your quarterback, if you're not able to protect your running game, I mean, what are we even doing here? So coaching,
boy, it'd be nice to have a great offensive line in front of your quarterback and running back.
I know. Offensive line
comes back to that.
I also think it's a philosophy, though. Like the Bears are trying to show you that Fields can be a star for 10 years. And the Giants are still trying to show you, or were when Jones was healthy, still trying to show you that Daniel Jones is that next generational talent that deserves the money. And I think there's so much at stake. You mentioned ownership. The Giants have consistently signed players that fit their brand, their mold. Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley are the exact same brand. They're somebody that if you had a daughter and maybe your daughter is 25, you find out she's engaged and they bring somebody home. If they bring home a Daniel Jones or Saquon Barkley, you're counting your lucky stars. You have a gentleman that will take care of her through thick and thin. But I think as a result of the Giants focusing on this sort of brand of players, and I think the Bears are trying to fix a very long history of mistakes way too quickly. And the Giants are doing the same thing. So I would like it. I think the Jets and the Browns prove that when things are broken and the quarterbacks you were counting on aren't even there and you got to stop prioritizing that, you can win football games with good fundamentals. Stop trying to prove the Giants should stop trying to prove things with Jones. It's clearly broken if he's playing. We saw with Taylor basically the same result, whether it's $40 million or $14 million. Defense, running game, win the turnover battle. That is a formula that has won in the NFL no matter what the era. Now, obviously,
it's what the Jets are doing for sure.
For sure. And this era is a little different, though, with the, not necessarily, the power teams that we've seen in the past. But I guess something we're seeing more and more of is clock management issues from these coaches. I mean, I complimented the Falcons a second ago. There was a moment last week where the Falcons decided to spike the ball. Instead of taking their final timeout, they elected to spike the ball. And then they had a delayed game penalty or about to get one and took a timeout. So how does something like that happen? The Giants, how do you run the ball when you have no timeouts inside the 5? Like these seem like very basic things, and we're seeing tons of clock management problems. I think part of the issue is the fact that they got this guy putting the ball down, and that sucks. Get rid of that. I'm tired of that. Like we
learned that. We learned that. That rule was brought into the spotlight with that Cowboys game where they lost because they ran off so much time. And I mean, that rule needs to change. I think that they just need to all right, the ball's here, center gets the ball. That's it. You shouldn't have to wait for the ref to get out of the way and everything like that. Just put the ball down. That's where it is. Center snaps it.
Brian Daboll and McDaniels are both Bill Belichick coaches, and they both elected to, or apprentices of Bill Belichick, and they both elected to let time just evaporate for no reason when they were starving points. And they'll say, oh, I didn't want the other team to have any time. You shouldn't even be thinking about what's happening until you score. Period.
If you can't score, you have then it doesn't matter. I mean, that's exactly like basically what Robert Saleh said after the Jets game. He's like, we had to score. We didn't care how much time was on the clock. And I mean, the Jets ran into that instance at the end of the first half against the Broncos last week, where, Zach Wilson has the boneheaded, let me throw it in bounds, and the clock runs out before the end of the half. Giants also made me miss out on $200 by running it and not kicking a field goal there.
I kind of thought
that's
that was funny.
That's neither here nor there. But I mean, if you're talking about, John, you talked about coaching being part of the problem. We all have to assume Eberflus is gone after this year, right? So I mean, if I was a Bears fan, this is what I'm hoping for and what I'm praying for. I'm hoping Michigan wins the national championship. Harbaugh is like, you know what? I've done all I have to do here. He becomes your next head coach. You get Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, and then you get the top offensive line talent at number 2. You protect that investment, and then Harbaugh is your new guy. What do you think of that, Johnny? Do you like that plan?
I don't know if you guys know this, but John Harbaugh has.
Why don't you just forfeit the season? Why don't you?
Well, I don't know if you guys know this, but John Harbaugh has serious ties to the Chicago Bears organization.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the backup quarterback here.
He's played for them
for a number of years.
Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, not John Harbaugh. Excuse me. That's right.
Whatever.
Just similar, right? But I mean, people have talked about this being the pipeline for years and years. The Bears have gone through 4 head coaches now in the last decade. I mean, like, that's not sustainable. Like, they have to bring in a guy to change this.
And you're right. The fish
culture.
stinks from the head down. It's an ownership issue. Now
they have to bring someone that changes this losing culture, because the coaching staff that we have is not it.
For the record, the Denver Broncos are tanking. Like, they are. They had this guy McLaughlin is a new running back that was averaging over 7 yards a carry. And he was, Johnny, you and I were talking a little bit about this. I was like, what is Peyton going to do with his running back room? He actually ran it like it was a JV offense. You're in for a play? Next guy. You're in for a play. Next guy. Substituting 3 straight plays to start the game. That is like you're just evaluating. That means you're not trying to win. That is a preseason mentality. Your best running back should get a majority of the carries, period.
I've never even heard of a team tanking when they don't have a first-round pick. All they're doing is gifting Seattle a higher pick.
It's not necessarily tanking for the sake of getting a early first-round pick. You get earlier second-round picks, third-round picks, fourth-round picks, no matter how bad you stink. And Peyton is already saying, I didn't sign Russ. I had nothing to do with this. I'm here to evaluate, and I'll tell you what really needs to be done. He's taking a stance, and Brian Dable is doing the same thing with Daniel Jones, saying, I didn't say I wanted to sign this guy. I didn't pick up his 5-year option. It's just a blame game, and to me, it's disgusting to do that before Halloween. You have a whole season. You got fans paying money. I would rather be, if I was guaranteed to get the number 1 pick in the last game we needed to lose, I'd rather win. That's me. I can't lose on not football, guys. Come on.
Two things really quick about the Broncos. Number 1, I'm still sick to my stomach that the Bears fumbled and lost to them, because they're a disaster of a franchise right now. The Bears should have 2 wins on their record.
Yeah.
And then the second thing, a couple seasons ago, before Russell Wilson was going to get moved, there was serious buzz that the Bears were going to bring in this major haul, multiple first-round draft picks, Roquan Smith, to acquire Russell Wilson. And despite the quarterback drama that we have today in today's current state of the team, I am so grateful that they did not pull the trigger for Russell Wilson, because good God, I mean, that's going to go down in NFL history as one of the worst trades ever.
If anything, it just
Broncos.
upgrades Pete Carroll's credibility, because we outlawed Geno Smith in this state. We didn't want him on any 3 of our New York teams, including Buffalo. That was how bad the press was around Geno Smith. So give Pete Carroll a little bit of credit. He might have made the biggest Super Bowl blunder of all time, but he is a brilliant coach.
Yeah, but they also got fleeced when they traded for Jamal Adams. But let's not talk about that.
And Pete Carroll is one hell of a gum chopper. Let's just put that right out there. He is one hell of a
elite level gum chopping.
Elite level. Now, last question for you guys: should we outlaw the tush push? Should we outlaw the brotherly shove? The Eagles I went on this show previously and I said, if you're not trying that on 4th and inches, you're holding your team back. And now I've seen the Giants fail at it. Cowboys failed at it last night. It seems more and more like, as there's more teams doing it, the Eagles are the only one that have that like 100% success rate.
They have the best offensive line in the league. So if you
They're
have the best
cheating.
offensive,
They're
if
all sides. They're all
you have the best
sides, Chris.
offensive line in the league, you can make that play because they're going to win that battle 9.9
They are
times.
I'd say
before
too
the
with that,
D-line.
it's not out. It's don't outlaw it. Just try and get better at it for other teams. Try and incorporate that into
Let's
your
create a
game
league
plan
where we
and use
protect
that
our
in-
quarterbacks like crazy,
do it as
where you
better.
can't even touch him in open field. But let's also have a play where we just shove him into a pile of pounds and pounds of body. Thank you so much for listening to Next Man Up's Week 6 NFL Recap Show on Down the Rabbit Hole Media. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to follow, subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, and please be sure to tell a friend. As always, all of our content can be found on dtrabbithole.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and as always, be well.